Gather around, everyone. It's story time. Hi, welcome to DBHandmades. My name is Danielle. My great-grandmother was a crocheter too. Her Nana crochet her blankets. She had kept those blankets or Afghans for several years. They were family heirlooms. Unfortunately, when my parents moved to North Carolina, they had to start dealing with things like moths, which they were not used to dealing with when they used to live in Florida. So keeping that in mind, these blankets were made of wool. Moths love wool. Those Afghans were just sitting in a closet, unprotected, and when my mom brought them out to use them a couple winters ago, they were completely ruined. So it's not like I offered to repair them, but unfortunately, both were chewed and eaten beyond repair. I began to ask my mom questions about what they looked like and offered to make her a new one that looked very similar to the one that her Nana made for her. Obviously, I'm not going to make it out of wool yarn. I'm going to make it out of acrylic yarn. It's just a simple design of granny squares stitched together. The Afghan was a light gray and pink, like a medium pink color. I thought I'd bring you guys on this journey so that you can join me in recreating my great-grandmother's granny square Afghan. So here are the materials that you're going to need if you would like to follow along and make a granny square Afghan. You're going to need 4-weight yarn or big twist value yarn in the colors medium pink and soft gray. You're going to need a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook or the letter I crochet hook, some tapestry or embroidery needles to weave in your ends, and some scissors. Let's go ahead and crochet us some granny squares. So according to my mom, she wants her blanket to have alternating colors per round. So first we're going to start off with the pink for this square. We're going to do chain 2. And I like to do a magic ring. Some people start their granny squares off differently, but right now I like to do it with a magic ring. So we're going to do 4 single crochets into the second chain from the hook. And now we're going to begin to do our first round of our granny square. We're going to do chain 3 and do 1 double crochet, do another double crochet, and chain 2 for your corner. 3 double crochets, and then we're going to repeat 3 double crochets again, followed by 2 chains, and then we're going to do a slip stitch into the top of this chain 3 here, and instead of yarning over and pulling through, we're going to get our gray yarn, do a slip knot, put it on our hook, and pull through our pink loop. And now the next round is going to be done with the gray yarn. So we're going to chain 3 and turn. Round number 2, we're going to do 2 double crochets into the chain space, chain 2, and do 3 double crochets into the same chain space. And so in each of these corners, we're going to put 3 double crochets, chain 2, another 3 double crochets. So we're going to repeat this 2 more times, and then I'll meet you for the last double crochet. So here we are on our last double crochet, and before we finish off and we have 2 gray loops on our hook. I'm going to make sure that the gray yarn is on the back side of my square. Then I'm going to take my pink yarn over, and pull through my 2 gray loops. Then I'm going to go ahead and do a slip stitch into the top of the chain 3. And then you're going to do chain 3 with the pink yarn and turn. Round number 3, we're going to do 2 double crochets into this chain space, and then what I like to do is make sure that I have my gray yarn. I'm going to wrap the pink yarn around the gray yarn. I'm going to continue doing the 2 double crochets, and then we're going to go to the next corner and do 3 double crochets, followed by 2 chains, and then 3 double crochets. In the next chain space, we're going to do 3 double crochets, and then we're going to just repeat what we did in the corners, where we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. I will meet up with you for our last double crochet of the round. All right, again, we are at the last double crochet of the round. Gonna yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. Gonna grab our gray yarn over and pull through the 2 pink loops, and do a slip stitch into the top of our chain 3. Chain 3 and turn. Round number 4, we're going to do 2 double crochets, and again, I want to make sure to wrap our gray yarn around the pink yarn, just so it's nice, and it kind of helps with weaving in our ends. One less step to do in the end. Again, in each corner, we're going to do 3 double crochets, 2 chains, or chain 2, and then 3 double crochets. In each chain space, we're going to do 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets, and then 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. I will meet back up with you for the last and final color change. All right, now we're on to our last double crochet of the round. Again, we're just making sure that we have the last color change. We've got our last 2 gray loops on our crochet hook. We're gonna grab our pink yarn, loop it through our gray yarn, and do a slip stitch with the top of the chain 3. And for the last time, we're going to chain 3 and turn. We're going to do 2 double crochets. In the next chain space, another 3 double crochets. And in each corner, we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets in the same chain space. And then again, make sure that in each of these chain spaces, you're going to do 3 double crochets. In each corner, you're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in the same chain space. And then I will meet you for the very final double crochet. All right, our final double crochet has arrived. And this time we're actually going to finish with the pink yarn and then do a slip stitch into the top of our chain 3. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut off some yarn ends. I'm going to cut off about 5-6 inches so that if I want to weave in and tie off my ends, I have that option. I'd rather have it too long than too short. I'm going to go ahead and pull my yarn end through and then weave it underneath my next stitch. Pull the center so it's nice and tight. All right, So here's the first of many granny squares. My mom said that she wants some pink and gray and then also some gray and pink, if that makes sense. So I'm just like alternating the colors throughout each square and then putting them next to each other. Okay, let's see how many squares I've made so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Okay. I've made 35 squares so far, including the one that we just made together. I asked my mom how big the Afghan actually was, so I know if these 2 other skeins are enough or if I'm gonna have to go back to Joann's and get some more. But for now, let's go ahead and just have a meditative experience while crocheting more granny squares, shall we? Alright, so we have some of our granny squares. Now I'm gonna lay them on the floor to see if I like how it looks. I was asking my mom how big she would like me to make her granny square Afghan. She said that a throw size blanket would be perfectly fine. Awesome. And I don't feel like making any more granny squares. My life's just been so full of granny squares right now. That means that I can be done. So I've made 88 squares and we're gonna lay them out 8 by 11 squares. Or maybe not lay them out, but at least I'm going to assemble them as such. So let's go ahead and assemble our granny square blanket. We're going to put 2 squares, one in front of the other, and I like to go across from right to left when assembling granny squares, and I'm going to use the slip stitch method. And I'm also going to use some soft gray yarn, and so I'm going to do a long tail. I'm going to attach put our hook through 2 of the loops. So I'm going to use the back loops only for the gray yarn, or for the gray outer square, and then for this pink yarn I'm going to do the front loop only. I'm going to take our gray yarn and pull through both loops. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm just going to continue to the next front loop here, going downward, and then I'm going to take my hook and hook the back loop only. I'm going to yarn over with the gray yarn and pull through all 3 loops. Again, we're going to go through the front loop only with the pink, the back loop only with the gray yarn, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And you're just going to continue down the line all the way across. And then I'm going to show you how I connect to the next couple squares. While you're doing your slip stitches, that you're keeping your tension pretty loose. You don't want it to be too tight because you don't want the edges to be super taut. So just be mindful of your tension. And so our last stitch is going to encompass the first of the chain 2s right here. And then this is where we get 2 more squares. According to my mom, she wants to alternate the colors, but you know, when you're making your own granny square blanket, you can make it however you want. So we're going to connect the next 2 squares by taking, so here's the chain 2 again. We're going to skip this chain 2 and go to this other part of the chain 2.
Again, here's the chain 2. We're going to go to the second one and just keep going. Of course, do it with better tension than that. Let me just redo it real quick. There we go. And now that's actually how you're going to attach all of your squares together. Just be cognizant that all of your stitches are going to line up so that nothing is misaligned. Just make sure to keep track of that as you go instead of once you're done, because it's just a lot easier to correct your mistakes as you go than having to rip everything out and then having to start over. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do 11 more pairs of granny squares, and I'll meet up with you in a moment. We are at the very end of our row. We're going to do our last slip stitch. In order to finish off, I'm going to do a chain 1 and cut a long tail for sewing. So about like 6 inches, just so that we can weave in our ends. And I will do that later. All right, so this is what I have made so far. Just like a long row of granny square pairs just slip stitched together. It almost looks like I just made a banner. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna some more granny squares and just lay them to one of the sides of each granny square and just keep doing a slip stitch join until I have 8 rows total. Because we're gonna do, again, we're doing 8 blocks by 11 blocks, or 8 squares by 11 squares. It's gonna take some time to do that, but you know what? That's what YouTube, Netflix, or any streaming service is for, or even listening to an audiobook. My husband and I just finished Avatar, The Last Airbender, the live action version. Super enjoyable. Very nostalgic to watch. I don't know why, I just recommended that. That was really hard to crochet through. Maybe find something a little less boring to watch while you crochet. Last night I finished doing all of the vertical seaming, and now I'm gonna do the horizontal seaming. So in other words, having it be 11 blocks long, and then the horizontal seam, I'm considering it to be the 8 blocks wide. And so now I'm gonna show you how I do the horizontal seaming. It should be about the same principle except for when those 2 seams intersect. Now that we've made it to what I'd like to call the intersection, let us put our yarn above our hook like this. We're going to put our hook underneath that vertical seam, yarn over, and pull through. Again, make sure that you have loose enough tension so your seam isn't being bunched up as you go along and as you're seaming your granny squares together. And then you just keep going. All right, so here is our final product. I have draped the blanket over the back of the couch, and so I'm really excited with how it turned out. Mom, I hope that you really like it. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me as we crochet a replica of my great-grandmother's granny square blanket. If you really enjoyed following along and making this granny square blanket, go ahead and press the like button. And if you really loved my yarny shenanigans while creating this granny square blanket, don't forget to hit subscribe. And until next time, stay safe, happy, and healthy, and have a wonderful day. Bye!